Five, four, three, two, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Neighborhood News Network, the home of citizen journalism. I am Andy Dybala. I'm actually on my other channel, Live with Andy on YouTube. It's been a while since I broadcasted there. I get so many strikes. I kind of stopped broadcasting there, but nevertheless, welcome to the show, everyone. I'm sorry. I apologize. Please, 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 please find it within yourself to forgive me for missing a show yesterday. I know. And George will be back tomorrow, Wednesday, and we'll be doing our regularly scheduled stuff Wednesdays and Fridays. But Mondays, I had a bit of an opening, a bit of a leg, and I had a Super Bowl leg myself. So yesterday, nothing happened, and I do apologize. But I appreciate every single one of you for coming back on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. It's beautiful here in Dallas, Texas. At least it's like 65 and sunny. I'm not sure about the rest of the country, but I do have a good show lined up for you today. As we've been talking about on Neighborhood News Network, we've been digging into Donald Trump and versus Joe Biden in this upcoming election. Amber Connor's been working the case in Georgia with Alex Halderman and this election security issue with the voting machines. And I'm going to be digging into all of that today. I'm going to be connecting some dots from other shows and presenting Alex Halderman's. I have a buddy named Hagerman, so his name confuses me a little bit. But Alex Halderman's presentation from the DARPA's DEF CON hacker conference from 2018, before the last election, just pretty much broadcasting to everyone how to steal an election. And some of these members involved at DEF CON were in Obama's Department of Homeland Security. Actually, the president and CEO, Jeff Moss, I'll be digging into him a little bit today. He was involved with Obama's DHS. He was he was on the Security Advisory Council, and he's known as Biden's favorite hacker. And all this kind of came about, actually. I got a book here. I did a show last week on the cult of the dead cow by Joseph Menn, and it was kind of digging into this hacker group out of Lubbock, Texas, and how they created hacktivism. You know, how Anonymous was affecting Wall Street with some of the stuff they were posting. They were trying to take criminals down around the world. They were trying to take down the child prostitution rings, and some of the members are in this group, but some of the members do good and some of the members do bad. And I came across Jeff Moss' name in this book, and I did a little research on him, and that's how I came about this fellow. So I'm just going to read you a little paragraph where he was first mentioned. So this is digging into the book. I guess this chapter is digging into this Ho-Ho-Con, and they used to have these hacker conferences. And at this Ho-Ho-Con, Jeff Moss was just a kid, and he met some fellow hackers by chance. And I'm going to be getting into that meeting right now. Page 33 from Cult of the Dead Cow by Joseph Menn, paragraph 1. I'm sorry, it's kind of dark. Let me turn on a light so I can read a little bit. So, other spontaneous meetings help shape the future of online security. Bednarik was walking down the second floor corridor when a skinny teenager ran toward him. Now, this is in the early 90s, by the way. I forgot to preface my reading with that. I didn't set the timetable. The kid said someone had kicked a plastic beer ball into Sterling's face. Sterling's another hacker. And the police were on the way. Could he duck into Bednarik's room to hide? Bednarik agreed, and the teen introduced himself as Jeff Moss, the Dark Tangent. Now that name kind of rings bells with me because we do have a follower out there named Wild Tangent, and I was just like, "This is Wild Tangent, a little shadow profile used by Jeff Moss and Dark Tangent here to follow with what's going on." You tell me, Wild Tangent. Is it you, Jeff? I'm on to you. That's what I do here as a researcher. I connect dots. So we continue. Other hackers were already hanging out in the room, and they introduced themselves by handles that were already legendary to Moss. One of them controlled switches at a major phone company. Another had the attack programs called exploits that could break into mainframe computers. Moss felt like a mouse in the corner with enormous eyes. These 5 people could take over the world if they wanted, he thought. Moss soon would use what he saw, the bonding and the talks and the t-shirts, and founded DEF CON, the volunteer-powered Las Vegas hacker conference that would become the biggest on the planet. And that's what we will be digging into a little bit today. Is DEF CON and how they created this voting village. Here, I'll pull it up on the screen. Just give me a second. Maybe not. I thought I had a little graphic. Voting village. DEF CON. Well, they created this this voting village. Here, I'll just put their Twitter page up, I guess. This voting village within DEF CON. It was created by DARPA. Some of the it was actually not created by DARPA, but they were involved in the creation of DEF CON with Jeff Moss. Jeff Moss is on the Atlantic Security Council. He's in like I said previously, he's in the DHS, and they're under the Biden, under the Biden. That's pretty much what we should call the Biden administration. But here at DEF CON Village, this is like if Jeff Moss is the leader of DEF CON and voting village, it's just pretty much like an elite hacktivism group that pretty much showcases their skills on how to break into a election voting machines and affect elections. And it's like a step-by-step process. So Jeff Moss can sit, I know he knows how to do all this stuff, but takes notes how to break into each company's voting machine, how to get into their software, and how to manipulate elections. And it's all kind of just like a all-in-one hacker voting steal hacking conference. Sorry, I'm stumbling right here. I'm trying to pull up articles where I read here. But one of the articles that actually caught my attention was this article posted on LinkedIn by Chris Kumiski. It's titled "Meet Joe Biden's Favorite Hacker." And I'm going to read you a little bit of that article before we get into Alex Halderman's presentation at the DEF CON conference. Excuse me. As you can tell, I need a drink of water. Take a breath, Andy. You're losing yourself a little bit. Regain composure. Here we go. Meet Joe Biden's favorite hacker. Turning the lights back off. I like my CIA black site look. Excuse me. When Jeff Moss got a phone call, and this was written in 2023. When Jeff Moss got a phone call from the White House in the early months of Barack Obama's presidency, he thought the new administration was trying to get one of its officials on the speaker lineup for the world famous Black Hat Security Conference that he had created and still helped run. Instead, the staffer on the other end of the line asked Moss, one of the country's most respected hackers, if he would be interested in occasionally reviewing and commenting on government reports in this area of expertise. Moss agreed, figuring it wouldn't take too much of his time. 2 months later, when he started receiving paperwork to apply for a security clearance, he learned what he'd actually signed up for: a spot on the Department of Homeland Security's Homeland Security Advisory Council, a role usually given to a big name corporate executives who covet the position as a sign of credibility and prestige. The group of outside experts help steer the department's work on everything from immigration to aviation security to Moss's domain of cybersecurity. That was my big introduction into the Big Tent, into the government space, Moss said in a recent interview. 14 years later, that was all under the Obama administration, where he got introduced into the DHS, by the way. 14 years later, Moss, who still helps organize the corporate-owned Black Hat Conference and also runs its more freewheeling sister event, DEF CON, he's also the president and CEO of DEF CON, has become one of the government's most trusted advisors on cybersecurity issues. With the ear of President Joe Biden's top cyber aides, Moss tries to help the feds harness the energy and talents of independent security experts to better defend the U.S. from digital attacks, and in the process, overcome decades of mutual suspicion and hostility between Washington's stodgy bureaucrats and the country's nonconformist techies. Moss no longer serves as the Homeland Security Advisory Council after failing the political vetting that the Trump administration introduced. He said, pretty much, Trump administration came in and was like, this dude's too much of a Democrat for us. He's affecting elections. We got to let him go. He's not the one good decision Trump ever made, but did it bite him in the ass in 2020? He said. But 2 years ago, he joined the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA's Cybersecurity Advisory Committee, where he leads a group that delivers policy advice from independent researchers, cyber threat analysts, and security professionals. Jeff Moss is a legend in the security field and one of the most respected voices in the community of hackers, researchers, and cyber defenders. CISA Director Jen Easterly said in a statement, with AI and other emerging technology issues challenging governments in new ways, reminiscent of an earlier era when computers and their security risks first appeared on politicians' radars, Moss said it's more important than ever for the cyber community to get involved in policy debates. Now, the Biden-Harris administration actually created a new DARPA. You know how DARPA does these challenges, creating super soldiers, creating vaccines, rapid response vaccines. Now, this is also one of their things the Biden and Harris administration is dumping money into. They're giving $20 million. It's a DARPA challenge for artificial intelligence to protect our country's software and voting technology and our intelligence technology. So the Biden-Harris administration is going to have their fingertips all up in our cybersecurity for the upcoming future / the Biden administration. Sorry, I lost my point. With AI and other emerging technology issues challenging the governments in new ways. Sorry, I already read. As time goes by, as time goes by, isn't that a song? The consequences of security research and hacking have more policy implications, Moss said. It's just ballooning. Moss's role as a liaison between the government and the security community has expanded over the past few years as policymakers have increasingly come to rely on independent experts to find and report security issues. Taking a break for a drink. Public-spirited hackers pride themselves on warning about vulnerabilities that no one else will discuss. Not the foreign governments and cyber criminals exploiting them, not the U.S. spy agencies monitoring those attacks, and not the manufacturers whose focus on speed and profits led to the flaws. The U.S. government has sought to capitalize on hackers' eagerness to raise the alarm. All agencies are required to maintain portals where anyone can report flaws they discover on public facing government websites, and several agencies have offered monetary rewards for such reports. Sorry, they just get into how cyber threats are more important than ever to defend against. The Messenger, Moss, Dark Tangent, Code, and Dree and Ufrinko. Hacking is no longer a pure tech experience, Moss said. It's all political now because it's all related to power or money. Over the past 30 years, as more critical infrastructure has begun relying on computers, hackers have seen their work hunting for and exposing digital vulnerabilities becoming much more important to national security, even as it has also attracted more legal repercussions from negligent corporations hoping to cover up their mistakes. During the same period, the security community has repeatedly gone to war with the U.S. government over policies that experts see as dangerously misguided, such as subverting the encryption used in communication devices like smartphones. With their skills both in demand and under attack, hackers slowly began to assert themselves more in Washington. So this is they're getting into the start of DEF CON, and how hackers are becoming more political and how they're subverting government and kind of putting their fingertips on what's going on in the community. So I have here, just to give you some proof that he was actually in the Obama administration. Secretary Napolitano swears in Homeland Security Advisory Council members. And if you just do a little Command F, Jeff Moss, there he goes. Jeff Moss is founder and director of Blackhat and DEF CON Computer Hacker Conferences. Moss has also worked for Ernst & Young LLP and their Information System Security Division. And he was also involved in the selection of Mayorkas in the Biden administration. The coalition pushing the Senate to quickly confirm Mayorkas includes veterans of the three most recent administrations, including Barack Obama's cyber coordinator Michael Daniel and George W. Bush's cyber czar Richard Clark, a host of former DHS and CISA leaders, including Trump officials Matthew Travis, Jeanette Manfra, Brian Ware, leading security officials such as Blackhat founder Jeff Moss and Luda Security CEO Katie Masuris, and two former NSA directors Keith Alexander and Chris Inglis. So he was involved in the selection of Mayorkas as DHS. He's on the Atlantic Security Council. He's a World Economic Forum member. Here's a little picture giving you a proof of that. Here's the Atlantic Security Council from their website. Jeff Moss is a member. So he has his hands all over government. And he was working with the Obama administration on election interference when it comes to our voting machines before the 2020 election. And I'm going to show you actually a little 26-minute presentation here of Alex Halderman's, famous for his Georgia pen hacking presentation he did in the Georgia election interference case that's going on right now that Amber Connors was covering. I'm going to show you a presentation of his at DEF CONs. And so this is Alex Halderman pretty much presenting to Jeff Moss how to hack the 2020 election so Joe Biden can get into office once again. And this, I'm not even getting into the the ballot harvesting and the mail-in ballot conspiracy theory. I'm not even getting into that. This is just one-on-one computer hacking techniques to steal the election from Donald Trump. So here's the video. You actually get a break from me talking for a bit. Aren't you excited, guys? Here's a video of Alex Halderman's presentation at DEF CON 26 in 2018. So here we go.
Introduce Alex Halderman from the University of Michigan. He is a professor of computer science and engineering and a verified voting technology fellow. His research spans computer and network security, applied cryptography, security measurements, censorship resistance, and electronic voting, as well as the interaction of technology with politics and international affairs. So he's here to eat all of our lunches. Thank you very much. Least leave the international affairs to other people. You're an expert in everything else. So he has helped discover the cold boot attack and the TLS logjam and drown vulnerabilities. He co-founded the ZMAP project, Census.io, and Let's Encrypt. He is a renowned expert in election cybersecurity and has performed numerous evaluations of real-world voting systems, both in the United States and around the world. After the 2016 U.S. presidential election, he advised recount initiatives in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania in an effort to help detect and deter cyber attacks. And in 2017, he testified to the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee about cybersecurity threats to election infrastructure. He's been named by Popular Science as one of the brightest young minds reshaping science, engineering, and the world. Alex? How's that introduction?
Thank you. Thank you so very much for that introduction. I'm here today to talk to you, like many other people, about the security of U.S. elections. But I want to make this a special kind of presentation. And so we're going to do a demonstration too, a demonstration in which I'm going to actually steal a little election for you. This is quite a technically demanding demonstration to pull off in real time in front of an audience. So I ask for your patience and some wishes of good luck, perhaps. And also, I'm going to need a volunteer, someone who can hold a camera steady for me. Yes? Thank you. Please. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, Jess.
Jess, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to need you to take this and I'm going to ask you in a minute to use this as a camera. So before we get to that though, let's see, many computers that need to work at once.
He's worse than president.
All right, before we get to this, I want to introduce you to the AccuVote TS voting machine. This is an example of a voting machine we use here in the US. The AccuVote TS was at one time the most widely used electronic voting machine. And it is still to this day the most well-studied of any electronic voting machine in the US. There have been major code reviews and other security assessments of these machines over the last 15 years by academic researchers, by groups commissioned by states, etc. But it's still in use today. In fact, it's used in parts or all of 18 states across the country. Georgia, for instance, uses this machine and its sister machine, the AccuVote TS, in all of the precincts across the state. Now, if we look at other voting technology across the country, it's also a patchwork of different kinds of technologies, of machines like this and others. And in some places, it even varies by county. But the AccuVote TS is a good representative machine of touchscreen, sometimes paperless, what are called direct recording electronic voting machines. So I'd like to demonstrate the machine for everyone. And I don't think this microphone moves any distance, does it? No. Let's see if we can unhook it. That way I can continue speaking. I apparently need to use this for the cameras. Not for you guys. All right, so we'll do a demonstration. So what I'm going to demonstrate on this handy AccuVote TS I brought with me is I'm going to run an election. Now, one thing that happens in every voting machine of all types across the country is before every election, officials need to program in the design of the ballots, right? What are the races? Who are the candidates? What are the rules for counting the votes? And on every single kind of voting machine, that programming is created on a PC workstation somewhere, either operated by the county or operated by an outside vendor or the state. And it's copied onto the machines by officials on memory cards, like the card for your digital camera, or USB sticks. In this case, it's one of these PCMCI memory cards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load an election into this machine, and I'm going to attack the machine. And I'm going to attack the machine merely by altering the programming on the memory card. So I'm going to put the memory card in the slot, and this is what election officials would do before any kind of election. No network connection to the individual machine. Now, where's my camera person? Will you come up here, please? And I'm going to hit a button here, and everyone's going to be able to see what the camera sees. So if you could film the screen here and just follow, you're going to have to come closer. Maybe. Nope. All right. Boy, I told you this would be technically demanding. So election officials before a real election might do logic and accuracy testing, just run a few test votes. That's fine, they can do that, but we're going to skip that just for speeding things up. And then after that, they would hit a button here to set the machine for an election. So we're going to do that. I'm going to open a door here. The machine actually has a little cash register style printer. And it's going to print out, it's going to think about it. It's going to print out what's called a zero tape. And this is just going to show that there are no votes in the machine so far. Can you zoom in right there and show 0 votes for both candidates? Little down. There we go. George Washington and Benedict Arnold, no votes. All right, now I'm going to need, let's say, 3 more volunteers. Yes? Anyone else? Yes? One more. Yes. You guys can be my voters. So come on up, and I'm going to ask each of you to cast a vote in our mock election. So the way voting works on these machines, like many other DREs, is the voter comes in, checks in at the polling place. You're an authorized voter, yes? All right, then I'm going to issue you an activated voter card. This will let you have 1 ballot, so you can come up to the machine and vote. And we're going to show the voter, just put it into the slot there. All right. And we're going to run a special election. And this is for President George Washington, the founder of the Republic, versus Benedict Arnold, the traitor of the American Revolution. Thanks, man. Thanks a lot. Everyone at DEF CON votes for Benedict Arnold. So if you want to be counter here, you better vote.
That's a Donald Trump, George Washington versus Benedict Arnold, aka Joe Biden, traitor of the American Revolution. just change the names, ladies and gentlemen. Just change the names.
For George. All right, so we have 1 vote. Oh, you forgot to cast your ballot. Got to touch cast ballot, and then it will mark your card as used and give it back to you. All right, so that's vote number 1 for George Washington. Voter number 2. All right, sir, here's your voter card. You are an authorized voter, yes? Sure. Okay, now it's going to cast another vote. All right.
And no influencing my decision this time, right?
Okay, yes, it's a secret ballot. All right, it's 2 votes for George Washington. It's going to spit out the card. Now here, I'm going to demonstrate a little bonus attack. I'm going to take the card he just used and give it to our next voter. This voter card I actually made myself back at the University of Michigan. That's why it has an M on it. It looks just like the real card, works just like the real card, except it also lets you vote as many times as you want. And this will work in the real machines too. All right, so using our infinite voter card, we're going to have our voter.
So Mr. Halderman got together with DEF CON director Jeff Moss, who's a pipelined in from the Biden administration. Just gives them that unlimited voter card. Next thing you know, polls close and Joe Biden takes over the vote in the middle of the night, ladies and gentlemen. This guy's literally right next to Wayne County in Detroit, TCF Center. Now he's trying to cover up some tracks involved here in the Georgia election case. You know, they always send their own experts in to cover the tracks. Still doing research on these gentlemen, trying to figure out which teams these guys are on. They like to call themselves hacktivists, but we know better. We know better if you're on the Biden side. We continue on with the video.
Voter number 3 cast his super secret ballot. All right. George Washington or Benedict Arnold?
With his Michigan
All right.
voter ID, unlimited voter ID.
The votes are cast. And just to review for everyone, the real election result, 2 votes for George Washington, 1 for that traitor Benedict Arnold. So now we're going to end voting. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a administrator card and I'm going to put it in the machine. And the administrator card, this is what an election official might have. I'm going to enter my secret PIN. That was the default PIN. I'm going to take out the administrator card. Now I'm going to hit end voting. And what the machine does after you end voting is it prints out another one of these cash register tapes that has the total votes for each candidate. Here we go, the results of the election. This is the official results that would be signed. And can you please zoom in on that to show the officials' results? Down. Oh, Benedict Arnold has won by a narrow margin. But of course, we all know that's not the real result.
AKA, Joe Biden has won by a narrow margin. See how he flipped the votes automatically flipped when he put that card in? What do you think happened in the middle of the night? You get some election. You infiltrate the election committee with some Biden officials. You know, you give them the administration card straight from Halderman, straight from Jeff Moss, who's on the DHS. He's telling everyone in the DHS what to look for within the voting election integrity committee. You know, he's on the hacktivist group. He's telling them what to look out for, what not to look for. He said, don't look out for this stuff. Look out for the pen hack. Look for people with pens. Nope. It was the officials with the cards. But we continue with the video.
In fact, malicious code that I loaded into the machine by hijacking this pre-election programming process has stolen the result. It's manipulated the ballots and all of the electronic records of the ballots to cause a fraudulent result to be recorded. All right. For my volunteers, I want to give each of you a printout of these fraudulent results to take with you as a souvenir. All right, now while this is printing, let me explain some disturbing facts about this machine. People might wonder, is this the current version of the firmware? Well, it's not the most recent version of the firmware, but in fact, this version of the firmware and even older versions of the firmware are in widespread use across the US today. There's no requirement that officials keep the firmware up to date. In fact, this version has already corrected vulnerabilities that exist in some versions that are, in fact, still used. All right, let me end this projection. All right, and excuse me, I just have to end it on this side so we don't run out of batteries. Very technically demanding. There. All right. Take control of this again. Was that a mission? So this machine I bought on eBay. It was used previously in Ohio, and Ohio sold off a large number of them after they were damaged due to a leaking roof in the in the warehouse, but most of them still work. We have dozens more of this same kind of machine down in the village for people to hack on. All right, so let me put all of this in context, and we don't have that much time, so I'm going to have to go quick. We have two styles of voting machines in the country. One's like this that are DREs, touchscreens, and so forth, and also optical scan machines that count paper ballots that voters fill in. Both of these, though, are computers. And both styles of machines have been studied in many security reviews over the last decade and a half. I was part of one in California where the Secretary of State in 2007 brought together a group of respected security experts to do a code review of all of the election equipment in the state. This is an excerpt from one of the reports about this machine, the AccuVote TS, and it details some of the vulnerabilities. Multiple buffer overflows, software updates without authentication, interpreted code, things that could be exploited by voters, things that could be exploited from the memory card, inadequate randomization of the ballots so that ballot secrecy can be compromised. You can forge the cards, all of this stuff. This is in 2007, and there are hundreds of pages.
Just notice I went with the old mic muted trick. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about that. I was just getting into how there's Michigan voting machines that were fuck. I'm just gonna get back to the video. Sorry about that. Thanks for the warning, though.
Of elaborate technical documentation about these vulnerabilities. Still, California decertified the machines. They wouldn't use them anymore. But other states continued to use them, and as I said, in many cases without updating the software. And it's not just these Diebold machines. Since that time, states have reviewed, there have been independent studies, many, many different kinds of US voting machines. In every single case, the reviews concluded that there were vulnerabilities that could be used by attackers to spread malicious code into the machines, often via the removable media, and compromise votes. So the fact is, across the US, something like 41 states use election equipment that's more than 20 years old. Some states still use voting machines that were designed in the 1980s. These machines are often not receiving security updates. They're often not benefiting from the latest technologies, and the only safe assumption is that all of them have exploitable vulnerabilities. Okay, but that's just individual machines. So if individual machines have vulnerabilities, it seems like it's still a problem. It's still not as big a problem if an attacker has to target machines one by one. How could an attacker, potentially a foreign adversary, compromise machines over a wide area and try to influence a national election result? Well, there are various things they might do. Some things very public, like trying to sabotage election reporting, trying to sabotage e-poll books or registration data so that voters show up and find out they're not registered. Those could be extremely damaging, but at least we'd know they'd happened. I think a more sinister and worrisome attack, the attack that keeps me up at night personally, is the one you just saw. What if someone compromised enough machines to subtly change election outcomes? And
so this I found odd. Here we have a little graphic on the screen says cyber attacks on election infrastructure, and he puts up a little journal article from 2014. Ukraine election narrowly avoided wanton destruction from hackers. So the Ukraine election from 2014, they said some Russian hacktivism experts tried to infiltrate their election process and take the election away from Poroshenko and give it to the right wing guy. I forget his name right now, but yeah, these hacktivism experts were, they like to test out what they're doing in Ukraine before they bring it here to the United States with the biolabs, with anthrax attacks, with a lot of things. with Russian wars. That's why we give them so much money, because we're just destroying their country and manipulating it for the Biden administration. So they tested out in Ukraine before they brought it over here in 2020.
Caused the wrong result. Would we ever find out? So how plausible is that? Well, there are three challenges for an attacker trying to silently steal an election. The first one is just that the technology is diverse and decentralized, every state and county running their own systems. Well, that helps in some ways, it hurts in some ways. So it helps if the election result is not that close. But in a close election that's going to swing on that's going to hinge on a set of swing states or swing districts, that just means that the attacker has and can tell from pre-election polls this whole set of places to potentially attack, any subset of which might swing the national election. So you scan all the states that are potentially going to be in play, find the ones that are most weakly protected, and strike in all of those. So rather than a diversity protecting us, we have a diversity across the country today of strength and weakness. And that's a major weakness for everybody. All right, the second challenge, though, is that the machines aren't connected to the internet. Well, thank goodness they're not. At least they're not supposed to be. It's actually not quite true. Some of them do connect to the internet briefly in order to send back results over 4G networks after the election. But most machines are not connected to the internet, and that's a great thing. However, they're not as distant from the internet as they may seem. So we talked about that memory card that I just used to spread malware into this machine in front of you and steal the election. Well, that memory card the programming on it is created on this election management workstation, right? That's running proprietary software that generates the ballot programming. If an attacker can infect that system, well, they can spread malware to every machine that is programmed from that EMS. And sometimes that's every voting machine in a county. Some places, they contract this out to the voting machine vendor. One large voting machine vendor programs the elections for 2,000 jurisdictions in 34 states. That is an incredibly centralized point of attack. And I've been in the room where they do this programming, and it's just an office somewhere. Isn't that a terrifying thought? Well, many other places, like in Michigan, they contract this out to small businesses in the region rather than to big central providers. So in Michigan, about 3/4 of counties use just 3 approximately 20-person companies in 2016. This is the website of one of them. And, you know, it's just a typical small business, no HTTPS. They're nice detailed photos of their warehouse. And, oh, here's their staff directory where you can find the picture, job title, and email address of every person in the company. So if I wanted to attack these guys and steal the next election in Michigan, maybe I forge an email from Sue here, the to Sue from the admin assistant, from Larry, the president, asking her to urgently open this attachment. That may be all I need to do to get into their network and spread malware to voting machines throughout Michigan and other states in the Midwest. All right, there's just one more challenge.
They actually, I've looked into that, and they use like a Chick-fil-A phishing email to do this as well, where they like give people free Chick-fil-A, and they were clicking the link and getting into getting their malware into the computers. And yeah, these election officials, they might not even know that they've been infected, and they're just going around handling their daily business, and boom, Biden's elected.
Challenge, and that's that more than 70% of votes across the US today are recorded on a piece of paper. And that is just great. This is much more than were recorded 10 years ago. And paper turns out to be a very effective and common sense kind of fail-safe for things like elections. I mean, paper may seem old-fashioned, but did you know that if you fly in commercial aviation on a modern jet with satellite navigation, that jet still, by law, has a magnetic compass in the cockpit just in case the computer navigation system fails, right? That's just common sense that in a critical system, you want to have a physical fail-safe. The brakes in your car, you want them to work even if the engine control units fail. Well, in voting, paper is that kind of physical failsafe. And of course, we all know paper can be tampered with too. But in modern election systems that have a paper backup record, what you end up with at the end of the day is an electronic record and a set of paper ballots. You have these two redundant records that each would require a different set of skills to tamper with at large scale. And as long as we check to make sure that the paper records and the electronic records represent the same election outcome, then it's going to be really, really difficult to tamper with both of those sets of records in a way that wouldn't raise red flags. And in fact, we don't have to count all of the paper in order to do that kind of check. We can just use statistical sampling. There are very efficient statistical sampling methods that have been developed over the last 10 years or so for elections called risk limiting audits, which in an election that's a landslide might be able to confirm that with very high statistical confidence by examining just a few hundred ballots across a whole state. So this is way more efficient than recounting, way more efficient than the kind of Florida auditing we all remember from 2000. There's just one problem. Most states don't look at the paper. They, unless a candidate demands a recount or there are other exceptional circumstances, or the states just don't look at enough of it in a relatively close election in order to have reasonable assurance that an attack would be caught. So to review, unfortunately, hijacking an election and influencing a close national contest might be a lot easier than we thought. There are vulnerable voting machines used in places across the country, and an attacker can use pre-election polling to determine which jurisdictions are going to use them and have a close contest. Then target the service providers that program them to spread malware in the pre-election programming process. Just like I showed here, you can influence a small fraction of the votes and subtly change the outcome. And although there may be paper records in place, we know what the procedures are in every state, and the attacker can ensure that their attack is not detected if they plan appropriately. So what do we do to defend against all of?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to play the rest of the presentation here, but I just wanted to keep pointing out that it's in here. I'm trying to pull up his picture here, that this is important because the man who is president and CEO of this conference, Jeff Moss of the DEF CON conference, he's an Biden administration official that actually was fired by Trump within the DHS as in his security advisory role because he didn't meet he had some political leanings, I guess, for the Biden administration. So Trump didn't want to have him on the team. So Trump kicks him off. They rigged the 2020 election. Biden is back in office and off. They're donating money to Ukraine, donating money to Israel, shutting down pipelines. Doing whatever they're doing, ruining America with illegal immigration. So I don't know how I got on this hacktivism kick, but yeah, it's kind of leading me down some weird rabbit holes, and it is affecting me ever since I've been on it. I just, like, in the past 2 days, I had both my credit and my debit card hacked and had some illegal purchases were made on some like goofy, weird websites where I was like, are these motherfuckers trying to send me a message? Not 100% sure, but it is weird that I started doing some hacker stories and I get hacked myself. And now that I do have audio, I will say just that quick story real quick. Quick story real quick. How many times can I say quick in a quick second? A Dominion voting machine being sent to the voting village at DARPA's DEF CON hacking conference was lost and wound up on sale on eBay from a thrift store from a Goodwill in Michigan. So we like to put a lot of emphasis on voter integrity, voter insecurity in this upcoming election, especially since the last two we think have been stolen. So I find it odd that these voting machines are like being sold from Goodwill, and they're being sent. This is a actual Dominion voting machine. It was purchased by someone running the DEF CON conference, and they were going to try and hack the Dominion voting machine to look for vulnerabilities in the upcoming election. But Donnie O'Sullivan actually covered the story, and I'm just going to let him cover it. I'll play his story on CNN. This is Donnie O covering the stolen election device. Here we go.
Denier in office. On Monday, the Washington Post reported about a fear among election experts that more officials sympathetic to the former president's claims of vote rigging could undermine election security. The reporting discovered that lawyers and allies for the former president were more organized and successful than previously reported in trying to access voting equipment to undermine the 2020 election. Namely, they were able to copy sensitive data from election systems.
The Trump allied lawyers sought voting machine data in key battleground states. The Biden administration has the hacker president and CEO of Election Hacker Center, Voting Village, and DEF CON in their back pocket to rig these elections. So don't give me that shit.
In Georgia as a part of a secretive multi-state effort. Senator Donnie O'Sullivan has been in Las Vegas at a hacker convention examining the conspiracy theories about voting machines.
So the conspiracy claims all the time evolve. Once the one head of the Hydra is cut down, the second head pops up.
We've had 2 years of non-stop conspiracy theories about the 2020 election, many of which center around these voting machines, that they were in some way hacked and used to steal votes and to steal the election. We are here at DEF CON in Las Vegas, which some people called Hacker Summer Camp, and hackers are doing their very best this weekend to break into these voting machines. Isn't what you're doing here, by tearing these machines apart and showing that they can be vulnerable, is that not just going to play into more of the fears, more of the conspiracy theories about the election?
I think a lot of these fears and these conspiracies really thrive in darkness. Here, we have like a clear box model where we open things up. If you're able to look inside and you're actually able to get your hands on these voting machines yourselves. It's not that there are not vulnerabilities within these machines that need to be addressed. Just because there are vulnerabilities.
Oh, conspiracies theorists said DARPA was started Operation Warp Speed back in 2014 as well, and they're creating vaccines for viruses that don't exist, and they're going to release it so they can make a bunch of money. That's what a conspiracy theorist said. Oh, but they were labeled and they were told to go back into their little dungeons and go away from society, and look what happened. Conspiracy theorists also like, look at this. They're just like allowing hackers to get into the machine, and then they go, okay, which hackers picked out these devices, bring them into the Biden administration, pay them some extra cash, get the voter cards, and start manipulating the next election. It's just like a step-by-step process and how to a deep state step-by-step process on how to manipulate elections. But here we go. Donnie O'Sullivan defends them.
Vulnerabilities doesn't mean that they were manipulated or exploited in the way that certain parties are saying that they are.
Harry, you've spent the weekend tearing apart voting machines. You've talked a lot about vulnerabilities, but have you ever found evidence that vulnerabilities have been used to change the result of an American election?
Never. And same comes with all the other experts. We have always said that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. We have never seen that kind of evidence.
Vulnerabilities exist in almost all software, regardless of where you find it. Even in nuclear power plants, you'll find that. There are a system of defenses and protections to ensure that a bad guy can't get to them. And those exist in voting systems as well.
Chris Krebs oversaw election security at DHS for the 2020 election before being fired by Trump for speaking out against conspiracy theories.
The biggest vulnerability in democracy is the people. It's the brain. It's the perception hack.
Cyber experts here say the big challenge to the 2022 midterms is not the machines, it's misinformation.
I'm afraid, even when I know the vulnerabilities of the systems, I'm more afraid about misinformation claiming an attack which actually didn't happen and which will then get a hold in people's mind.
We want to focus on pushing security forward, and instead we're responding to death threats.
Nate Young and Michael Moore know all about conspiracy theories. They're part of the election security team for Maricopa County in Arizona, a ground zero of election lies. They're here to work with hackers to make elections more secure by exposing vulnerabilities and getting them fixed.
We have not seen a single accusation or conspiracy theory that has produced any actual tangible results.
Conspiracy theories like those being pushed by the likes of the My Pillow guy, who basically claims countries like China have hacked American elections and changed votes.
No, just forget about the evidence. If I'm right that China took our country right now, do you care? Would that bother you?
How does it feel as a voting systems expert, listening to people like Mike Lindell?
It makes me sad. It makes me sad from the fact that all of the resources, all of the energy which could have been...
Whoever said that in the chat, are these guys related? Harry Hersey does look like Donnie's fat hacker cousin that just sits there eating potato chips, hacking government websites and files all day long.
Used for something beneficial, improving is now misused.
Misused to perpetuate...
That guy, the Harry Hersey, that guy's the guy that bought the Dominion voting machine from Goodwill at the thrift store in Michigan. So he's the one that reported on that.
Misinformation that undermines American democracy.
The further the narrative goes on, the firmer it gets set in stone. You repeat the lie long enough, and many times it becomes kind of that reality, their reality. Ultimately, this comes down to the voters. What do people want? Do we want to be a democracy? And if the answer is yes, better start damn acting like it.
Tony O'Sullivan joins us now. Mike Lindell was not there. That video, just to make sure, that was from last year. Right.
That was from his cyber symposium.
Did any of the conspiracy theorists who push election lies show up to this conference?
Some, yeah, we spoke to one man who actually, some of his research was used in Sidney Powell's lawsuits back in 2020.
Oh, okay.
You know, look, the thing is that the people there, the hackers at that convention, they are people who really want to poke holes in systems. You know, so if even they are saying, you know, even those top experts are saying, look, the vulnerabilities that Mike Lindell and other people say exist, they're not there. And the main point they were trying to get to hit at this weekend was, yes, there can be vulnerabilities in voting machines. We know a lot of them are very old. No system is perfect. But there's a big difference from there being a vulnerability and a gap to changing votes and overturning an election.
So there we have Donnie O'Sullivan defending the hackers. And one more thing we go. I was showing you how Jeffrey Moss, president and CEO of DEF CON, was a former Biden administration official. I also want to show you that we see this Alex Halderman defending like Trump in Georgia. Well, he also defended Hillary in 2016. So I'm not sure whose side this guy is on, unless he's just like, I just want a fair election. Unless he's just like plays the middle out. If it's Trump, if it's Hillary, if it's Biden, I just want it to be fair. Let the people decide, which is the way it should be. If Biden actually won, then Biden actually won. Just do a recount, just so we can save some face here. But here, we're going to go with this article real quick. This is from November 22nd, 2016. Clinton urged to challenge election results over discrepancies. A new report from New York Magazine claims a group believes they found persuasive evidence that results in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania may have been manipulated or hacked. Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign is reportedly being told to call for recounts in 3 swing states by a group including voting rights attorney John Bonifaz and widely respected cybersecurity researcher J. Alex Halderman, the man who did the DEF CON presentation on stealing elections that I just showed you, that is defending Trump's claim in Georgia currently with the pen hack. The director of University of Michigan Center for Computer Security and Society. A new report from New York Magazine claims the group believes they found persuasive evidence that results in Wisconsin, Michigan, and the PA may have been manipulated or hacked. The report points out that the time to call for recounts is running short. The deadlines to call for formal recounts in Wisconsin, PA, Michigan all pass within the next week. The evidence, which was reportedly presented to the Clinton campaign last week, showed discrepancies between counties that rely on paper ballots versus counties with electronic voting machines. A few hours after the story was published, Halderman published a blog post on Medium refuting some of the story's details, but laying out the evidence for why election results in those 3 states should be challenged. He wrote that given Russia's documented meddling in the lead up to Election Day and the woeful state of cybersecurity around election machines, it is worth auditing the numbers to rule out any foul play. Were this year's deviations from pre-election polls results of a cyber attack? Probably not, Halderman wrote. I believe the most likely explanation is that the polls were systematically wrong rather than the election was hacked. But I don't believe that either one of these seemingly unlikely explanation is overwhelmingly more likely than the other. The only way to know whether a cyber attack changed the result is to closely examine the available physical evidence, paper ballots, and voting equipment in critical states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and PA. Unfortunately, nobody is ever going to examine that evidence unless candidates in those states act now in the next several days to petition for recounts. So I don't know if he's actually directly working for her, but he is saying to challenge the election and make sure that Trump did beat Clinton. So the same man representing. He's not representing them, but I guess he's just saying that the pen hack can happen. It's plausible. Pen hack's plausible in the Georgia election case. He's saying it's plausible in the Clinton election steal case. And he's telling Jeff Moss it's plausible in 2024 and get your shit together unless you want Trump to win. And you want to be sitting on your bat, not getting paid that big DHS money. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sitting through the muted 5 minutes, the Donnie O'Sullivan muted 5 minutes. Thank you for dealing with my mumbling and stumblings. I did earlier in the show. I have a heart problem, and I was having like weird heartbeats at one point while I was talking. And when that starts happening, I don't like to tell you, but I like to try to ignore it and move on. And I might stumble a little bit more than I usually do. So thanks for dealing with my weird heartbeat mumbles on top of my regular mumbling. But just get this information out there. No, during the 2024 election, we need some boots on the ground. Neighborhood News Network needs to get our network asses together and get some boots on the ground to monitor the elections. We need to be looking for people with the chips. We need to be looking for people with the pens, and we just need to be we need to be more involved in the upcoming election, so we don't have mass mail-in ballot dumps. We don't have election steals going on in 2024. And the real result, and if Biden wins, if it's an actual real election and Biden wins, we'll just have to tuck our tail to our legs and deal with it and be like, just American people are retarded, are uninformed. But if what we want to happen, have Trump win and take down the deep state, clean up the swamp. He reposted his he's going to drain the swamp message. I don't know if I believe him. We'll see. We will see. But hopefully, whatever happens, it's fair. We have a fair election in 2024. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back tomorrow. Sorry for missing yesterday. There are a lot of this is the apology tour. Sorry for missing yesterday with G Dub. I'm sorry for all the football fans out there that the football season is over. Sad. Spring is almost here though. We got March Madness, and then we got boat season after that. Unless you live here in Dallas and you got to go up north for boat season. But the football season's over. You're gonna have to find something else to do. I'll tell you what though, if you do conspiracy theory shows on the weekend now that football season's over, you'll get a lot more viewers. Broadcasting tip. Saturday and Sunday. It's on now. All right, guys. I'll see you later. See you tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern with America's favorite citizen journalist, George Webb.